A billionaire thought he had everything but when he saw a young waitress hide under a table to calm his scared son. His world changed forever. Daniel Reed was a man used to controlling everything. His life was a perfect schedule of meetings, phone calls, and endless business deals. Money, power, and influence came naturally to him, but family, that was different. His 6-year-old son, Noah, was his world, yet Daniel often felt unsure how to connect with him. Noah was a sensitive boy. Loud noises, crowded spaces, or even sudden movements could scare him. Daniel loved him deeply, but he didn't always know how to calm him down when he got overwhelmed. One crisp Saturday morning, Daniel decided to take Noah out for breakfast at a small cafe tucked away on a quiet street. It was a simple place, nothing fancy, with wooden tables, warm lighting, and a soft hum of conversation. Daniel liked it for one reason. It was calm, almost invisible in the city's chaos. He wanted Noah to feel safe, to have a normal morning without the rush of his father's busy life, or the noisy staff at his usual hotel brunches. As they walked in, Noah's eyes lit up. He loved small, cozy places where he could explore without feeling rushed. Daniel guided him to a corner table by the window. He wanted to watch the world outside with Noah and let him feel free. But just as they were settling, the door opened again, and a group of people came in. They laughed loudly, joked around, and their voices echoed across the room. Noah stiffened immediately. His little hands gripped Daniel's arm, and his breathing became rapid. Daniel tried to kneel beside him, trying to reassure him, but before he could even speak, something unexpected happened. A young waitress named Mia noticed immediately. She had been working there for only a few months, but she had a natural gift for sensing when children were uncomfortable. She didn't hesitate. She crouched down to Noah's level, smiled gently, and whispered something to him that made him blink in surprise. Then, she slowly guided him under the table. At first, Daniel thought he should stop her, worried it might embarrass his son. But as he watched, he realized that Noah relaxed in an instant. His tense shoulders slumped, and a small giggle escaped him. Daniel couldn't believe it. Here was this young woman, a stranger, who had done what he himself often struggled with. She had calmed Noah when nothing else worked. He leaned back slightly, watching from a distance, feeling a strange mix of relief and awe. Noah was safe. He was laughing quietly. And Mia, with her gentle hands and soothing words, had created a bubble of comfort under the table that the chaos outside couldn't reach. Mia had a small box tucked in her apron, something she always carried for children who needed a distraction. She pulled out a little toy, a small wooden figure, and handed it to Noah. His eyes widened, and he held it tightly, spinning it around with delight. Daniel could see the wonder in his son's eyes. The way Mia had handled everything quickly, quietly, and with genuine care was extraordinary. She didn't act like a typical waitress rushing through her duties. She acted like she had been trained for this moment. It's like helping children in distress was her calling. As Noah's laughter grew, Daniel approached the table, his heart pounding. He knelt beside them, unsure what to say. Mia looked up at him with a calm smile as if she had done this 100 times. "He's very brave," she said softly. Daniel was taken aback. It wasn't just the words, it was the warmth behind them. It was the understanding in her eyes. She didn't pity Noah. She didn't judge. She simply cared. Daniel asked her how she knew what to do. Mia explained that before she took this job, she had worked at a small children's therapy center. She had experience helping kids with anxiety, sensory challenges, and fears. Life had forced her to leave that job to support her family, but her skills and her heart hadn't changed. Daniel felt a wave of admiration. He had money, influence, and endless resources. Yet this young woman, with no wealth or power, had something far more valuable: an instinctive ability to connect with a child. Noah peeked out from under the table. "Oh," shy but smiling. "Daddy, she's funny," he said, holding up the toy. Daniel laughed, feeling something he hadn't felt in a long time: a lightness, a sense of pure joy. He realized that in his years of business success, he had rarely witnessed moments like this. Small, simple, yet profound moments of human connection. And now, right before his eyes, It was happening in its purest form. The cafe hummed around them, the noise of life continuing as if nothing had happened. But for Daniel and Noah, time seemed to slow. Mia stayed patient, attentive, and calm, letting Noah enjoy the moment fully. She didn't rush him out, didn't scold him, didn't force anything. She simply created a space where he felt safe to be himself. Daniel's heart swelled. He realized that this small act, kneeling, whispering, hiding under the table, was bigger than he could have imagined. It wasn't just a kindness. It was a lifeline for his son, a bridge between fear and comfort. As they finished their breakfast, Daniel felt a mixture of gratitude and curiosity. He wanted to know everything about this young woman. Who was she? How had she learned to be so patient, so caring, so naturally kind? He realized that this morning, what had started as a simple outing had turned into something extraordinary. The connection between Noah and Mia was rare, special, and Daniel knew it was something he wanted to nurture. For his son's sake, perhaps in ways he didn't yet understand. For his own, when they left the cafe, Daniel carried a sense of amazement with him. He knew that Mia's quick thinking, her calm presence, and her gentle heart had changed the course of that morning. But more than that, she had given him hope. Hope that his son could thrive, hope that kindness still existed in the world, and hope that maybe, just maybe, there were people like Mia who could make life brighter in ways money never could. Daniel walked outside, Noah's hand in his, and for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel the weight of the world on his shoulders. He felt gratitude, wonder, and a quiet excitement about what might come next. Because this simple act of Waitress hiding under a table with his son was not just a moment. It was the beginning of something bigger, something life-changing. And Daniel knew it, even if he didn't fully understand how yet. After that morning at the cafe, Daniel couldn't stop thinking about Mia. It wasn't just the way she had handled Noette, it was something deeper. There was a calmness, a warmth, a sense of understanding in her that money and power had never taught him. He realized that, despite his wealth, he had rarely seen someone connect so naturally with a child. Noah, who often clung to him when he felt scared, had laughed, relaxed, and felt safe with Mia in just a few minutes. Daniel was fascinated and, to be honest, a little humbled. The next week, Daniel found himself returning to the cafe more often. Of course, he told himself it was for the coffee and the quiet mornings, but deep down, he wanted to see Mia again. Each time he came, he watched her work, her efficiency, her patience, and the way she noticed the smallest things about people. But it wasn't just her skills as a waitress that impressed him. It was the care she showed to everyone, especially children. She had an instinct to make others feel comfortable, seen, and safe, and Daniel found himself admiring that quietly. One morning, as Daniel and Noah arrived, the cafe was busier than usual. The familiar buzz of conversation and clattering cups filled the room. Noah immediately looked nervous, scanning the room with wide eyes. Daniel could feel the tension in his son, and before he could react, Mia appeared. She knelt down beside Noah, just like before, and whispered softly to him. Noah's shoulders relaxed, and he smiled. Daniel watched as Mia handed him a small toy from her apron pocket. And for a few moments, the world seemed to stop. Daniel realized something important. Mia wasn't just helping Noah because she was a good waitress. She had a gift, a natural ability to read children, to understand their fears, and to soothe them in ways Daniel had never learned. And it wasn't something she had to think about. It was instinctive. She had experience, yes, but it was also her kindness and patience that made her special. Daniel felt a mix of respect and curiosity. He wanted to know more about her. After Noah had calmed down and was happily playing with the toy, Daniel finally approached Mia. "You really have a way with him," he said, trying not to sound too formal. Mia smiled modestly. "I've always worked with kids," she explained. "Before I took this job, I worked at a small therapy center. It was rewarding, but life changed, and I had to find work that helped my family." Her eyes held a quiet strength. Daniel felt a pang of admiration. Here was someone who had sacrificed so much for her family, yet still had the patience and love to help a little. Boy like Noah, Daniel watched Mia interact with other children in the cafe as well. She noticed when one was too shy to order, when another dropped their spoon, or when someone was nervous around strangers. She would kneel, smile, and quietly offer reassurance. Daniel realized that her kindness wasn't limited to his son. It was a natural part of her character. He began to see her not just as a waitress, but as someone extraordinary. Someone whose heart and actions left a mark on everyone around her. Over the next few visits, Daniel learned more about Mia's life. She had taken this job to support her younger sister and her father, who was struggling with health issues. Daniel couldn't help but feel a mixture of empathy and admiration. Here was a young woman working tirelessly, yet she still found time and energy to help children feel safe and cared for. He reflected on his own life, where he had money and influence, but had never known someone with such quiet courage and compassion. One day, during a particularly busy morning, Noah had another anxious moment. The cafe was crowded, voices raised, and music playing from a small speaker. Noah froze, staring at the floor. Daniel's heart sank. But Mia didn't panic. She appeared at his side almost immediately, kneeling down and speaking softly. She gently guided Noah under the table again, just like before, and handed him another small toy. Daniel watched in awe as his son's body relaxed, his breathing returned to normal, and a small giggle escaped him. Daniel had never seen anything like it. It was in that moment that Daniel realized Mia's importance went beyond being a kind waitress. She had a rare gift: she could reach children, calm their fears, and make them feel safe in a world that often felt overwhelming. Daniel felt a deep gratitude toward her, not just for Noah, but for showing him a way to connect with his son that he had struggled to find. He wanted to protect her, support her, and ensure that her kindness was recognized. But Daniel also discovered something concerning. He noticed that Mia's manager often scolded her for taking too much time helping children. The manager didn't understand that these small moments were important. They were life-saving for kids like Noah. Daniel felt a surge of anger. How could someone treat Mia, someone so patient, skilled, and compassionate, with such disregard? He realized that Mia's talent and heart were far more valuable than her manager's short-sighted rules. As Daniel watched Mia handle the chaos of the cafe with grace, he felt a sense of admiration that was almost overwhelming. He was a man used to controlling situations, used to being in charge. Yet here was someone who could manage life's challenges, especially with children, more gracefully than he ever could. He began to see Mia as a key part of Noah's life, someone who could help him thrive in ways Daniel himself sometimes struggled to achieve. Mia's presence also brought a new dynamic to Daniel's own understanding of fatherhood. He realized that caring for a child wasn't always about money, rules, or schedules. Sometimes it was about patience, empathy, and presence. Mia had shown him that. She had reminded him that being a father meant creating safety, trust, and love for his son, and sometimes letting someone else lend their unique skills and heart to that mission was a blessing. By the end of that week, Daniel had made a quiet decision. He wanted Mia involved in Noah's life in a more meaningful way. Not just as a cafe waitress, but as someone who could guide and support Noah. He admired her so much that he wanted to find a way to help her, to ensure her gifts were recognized, and to see how far her compassion could reach. He didn't know exactly what the future held, but one thing was certain: Mia had made a mark on his heart, and on Noah's. As Daniel and Noah left the cafe each day, he felt a sense of peace he rarely experienced. Noah had found someone he trusted, someone who understood him, and Daniel felt a quiet hope that, with Mia's help, his son could face the world with more confidence. He had entered the cafe seeking a quiet breakfast, but he left each day with a new understanding of human kindness, connection, and the extraordinary impact one person could have on a child's life. Daniel had been visiting the small cafe every day for a week, under the guise of enjoying coffee and quiet mornings. But deep down, he knew the real reason was Mia. He wanted to see her, to observe her, and to understand what made her so extraordinary. Each time he watched her interact with Noah, he felt a mixture of awe and curiosity. She had this quiet confidence, this natural ability to soothe and connect with children that Daniel could never fully master. He began to realize that Mia wasn't just a remarkable waitress. She was someone who could play a crucial role in his son's life. One morning, the cafe was unusually busy. The lunch crowd had arrived early, and the noise was louder than usual. Daniel could sense Noah's unease immediately. His little hands gripped the table, and his legs swung nervously. Daniel's heart tightened. He hated seeing his son so anxious. But before he could do anything, Mia appeared by his side. Without hesitation, she knelt down, speaking softly to Noah, her voice calm and soothing. She guided him under the table just like before and handed him a small wooden toy from her apron. Noah's entire body relaxed, and he started playing quietly, a small smile forming on his face. Daniel couldn't help but marvel at her instincts. After the rush settled, Daniel finally approached her while Noah was happily engaged with the toy. "How do you do it?" he asked, almost out of breath. "How do you calm him so easily?" Mia looked at him, her eyes reflecting a gentle strength. "I've worked with children for a long time," she explained. "Before this job, I worked at a small therapy center. I helped kids with anxiety, fears, and different challenges. Life changed, and I had to take this job to support my family. But the way I work with kids, that never goes away." Daniel nodded slowly, absorbing every word. He could feel the truth in her voice, the authenticity that no money, title, or education could teach. Over the next few visits, Daniel observed more of Mia's life than he had ever expected. He noticed small things, how she would quietly check on a child who looked shy, how she always remembered their names, how she would smile at a scared child and bend down to their level, making them feel safe. He began to realize that her work at the cafe was just a small part of who she was. Mia was someone who genuinely cared, someone whose heart naturally extended to those in need, especially children. Daniel felt admiration, respect, and a growing sense of gratitude. One afternoon, Daniel overheard a conversation that made his chest tighten. Mia's manager was speaking harshly to her, criticizing her for spending too much time helping children. "We can't let customers wait just because you're playing with kids," the manager said sharply. Mia explained patiently that sometimes children needed extra attention, that it helped them feel safe, and that a happy child meant happy families. But the manager wouldn't listen. Daniel felt a surge of anger. How could someone treat her with such disregard? He wanted to step in, but he waited, wanting to understand more about Mia and her life before making a move. Later that day, Daniel decided to ask Mia about her personal life, curious about what had brought her to this point. Mia shared that she worked multiple jobs to support her younger sister, who was still in school, and to help her father, who had been struggling with illness. She spoke with a quiet dignity, not asking for sympathy, just sharing her truth. Daniel felt a deep respect for her. Here was a young woman, facing enormous challenges, yet she remained kind, patient, and strong. It made him reflect on his own life. Despite wealth and comfort, he often felt disconnected from people, from reality. Mia reminded him of what truly mattered: compassion, understanding, and courage. A few days later, Noah had another anxious moment in the cafe. The place was bustling with customers, chairs scraping, coffee machines hissing. Noah froze, clutching Daniel's arm. Daniel felt the familiar pang of helplessness, but Mia immediately stepped in. She knelt beside Noah, speaking softly, guiding him under the table, and handing him a small, familiar toy. Noah's breathing slowed and a small laugh escaped him. Daniel realized he had never seen someone handle his son's fears with such ease. Mia didn't just comfort him, she made him feel seen, valued, and safe. Daniel understood that her influence on Noah went far beyond simple calming. She was giving him confidence, teaching him trust, and creating memories of safety that Daniel himself couldn't always provide. Daniel started thinking about how rare it was to find someone like Mia. He thought about his son, about how difficult it could be to raise a child who didn't always fit the expected mold. He knew he couldn't always be there to comfort Noah in every anxious moment, but Mia, she could. And the more Daniel watched her, the more he realized that Mia wasn't just helping Noah. She was teaching Daniel too. She was showing him how patience, empathy, quiet attention could change a child's life. As he continued to observe, Daniel began to see other sides of Mia as well. She wasn't perfect. She was human. She sometimes looked tired, her eyes carrying the weight of her responsibilities outside the cafe. She would smile through exhaustion, laugh through fatigue, and still put the needs of children first. Daniel felt a growing sense of protectiveness, an instinct to help her in any way he could. He thought about how unfair it was that someone so extraordinary struggled every day just to make ends meet. Then came a moment that struck Daniel deeply. During a particularly busy lunch rush, the manager publicly scolded Mia for helping Noah too long. Customers were starting to notice the tension. Daniel felt anger rise inside him. He wanted to step in immediately, to defend her, to make sure the world understood her value. But he restrained himself, quietly noting the injustice and planning his next move. He understood something crucial. Mia's gift was rare, and the world needed to respect and support it, not punish her for it. By the end of that week, Daniel had made a quiet decision in his heart. He wanted Mia involved in Noah's life in a more permanent and meaningful way. He wanted to ensure she had the stability and support she deserved, not because he felt pity, but because he recognized her extraordinary value. Daniel realized that Mia had become more than just a kind stranger in a cafe. She had become an essential part of Noah's world, someone he couldn't imagine his son growing up without. As Daniel left the cafe that day, holding Noah's hand, he felt a mixture of awe, gratitude, and anticipation. He had come to a simple cafe seeking a quiet morning with his son. What he found instead was someone who could change their lives. Mia's presence, her kindness, her patience, and her natural ability to connect with children had shown him a new way to care for his son. Daniel understood that life could be unpredictable, but sometimes, in the smallest moments, it brought extraordinary people into our lives, people who could make all the difference. Daniel knew that this was only the beginning. Mia's story, her struggles, and her gifts had become intertwined with his own, and he felt a quiet certainty that he needed to act not just for Noah, but for Mia as well. She had shown him what true compassion looked like, and now he wanted to ensure she received the recognition, support, and respect she so clearly deserved. The cafe had become more than a place for breakfast. It had become a turning point, a crossroads where lives were about to change forever. That morning in the cafe, Daniel arrived early, as he often did now, though he told himself it was just for the quiet coffee. But today was different. Today, he saw something that made his chest tighten with anger and protectiveness. The cafe was busier than usual, and the lunch crowd had arrived in a noisy rush. Mia was moving quickly, trying to keep up with orders. But she was also watching Noah, who had wandered a little from the table. For a moment, she knelt beside him, gently calming him down, just like she always did. Suddenly, the manager, a tall, stern man who never seemed to smile, walked over. His voice was sharp, almost cutting through the air. "Mia, how long are you going to spend hiding under the table with that kid? We have other customers to serve. This is ridiculous." The manager's tone was impatient, dismissive, and unfair. Mia looked up at him calmly but firmly explained that the boy had anxiety and needed a moment. She said that helping him made him feel safe and allowed him to enjoy his time at the cafe. The manager sneered, clearly not caring. "I don't care about your excuses. You're making other customers wait. If you can't do your job, maybe you shouldn't be working here." His words were harsh, but Daniel froze in place as he watched. He felt a surge of anger he hadn't experienced in years. Here was someone who clearly had no idea how valuable Mia was, how much she genuinely helped children, and how much she mattered. Daniel's mind raced. He wanted to step in immediately, to defend her, to make the manager understand that Mia was worth more than any rules or complaints. Before he could even think of a polite way to approach, he saw Mia take a deep breath, not showing fear or hesitation. She knelt again beside Noah, giving him the same calm smile that had become so familiar over the past week. Daniel's heart ached at the unfairness, but he also felt admiration. Mia wasn't angry. She wasn't intimidated. She was patient, kind, and unwavering, even in the face of injustice. Daniel realized that this was the moment to act. He walked quickly toward the table, his presence commanding attention. As he approached, the cafe seemed to quiet slightly, though it was still full of people. "Excuse me," Daniel said firmly, addressing the manager first. "You need to stop treating her this way." The manager's eyes widened as he turned to face him. Daniel continued, his voice calm but authoritative. "Do you know who I am?" The manager's face went pale. Daniel, one of the wealthiest men in the city, didn't need to say anything else. The implication was clear. He had influence and power beyond imagination. Daniel didn't use it to intimidate, though. He used it to protect Mia. He turned to her, smiling gently. "Mia, you have nothing to fear. No one should ever belittle you for helping a child, especially my son." Mia blinked, surprised and a little uncertain. She'd never imagined that someone like Daniel would step in on her behalf. Then Daniel made an offer that would change everything. "I want you to work with Noah directly," he said. "Not just when he's in the cafe, but every day if you want. You'll be paid well with a salary higher than you could ever expect from this cafe, and you'll have the freedom to do your work properly, without judgment." Ow. Mia's eyes widened. She stammered slightly. I don't know if I can." Daniel shook his head gently. "This isn't charity. This isn't about money. This is about giving you the respect and recognition you deserve for your skills, your heart, and your talent. You're extraordinary, Mia, and I want you to be part of Noah's life in a way that really matters." Mia felt a wave of emotion. She had spent so many years working tirelessly, struggling to support her family, yet no one had ever recognized her in this way. She had been overlooked, underappreciated, and often treated unfairly. And now Daniel, a man of immense wealth and influence, was offering her something more valuable than money, trust, respect, and the chance to use her abilities fully. She looked at him, her eyes shimmering, and nodded slowly. Barely able to find the words, Daniel then addressed the manager one last time. "She will no longer report to you regarding these matters. She is working with my family now. I suggest you respect her for what she does best, helping children feel safe." The manager swallowed hard, clearly embarrassed and speechless. Daniel's presence, his calm authority, and his unwavering support for Mia left no room for argument. After the manager walked away, Mia turned back to Noah, who was still quietly playing with a toy under the table. She knelt beside him, smiling gently. "Hey, Noah," she said softly. "Do you want to come out and finish your breakfast?" Noah looked up at her, eyes wide and trusting. He nodded slowly, and Mia helped him out from under the table. Daniel watched quietly, feeling a deep sense of relief and gratitude. This young woman had just received the recognition and support she deserved. And Noah had someone in his life who could truly help him thrive. Daniel and Mia then sat down together, and he began explaining the offer in more detail. He wanted her to work as Noah's behavioral aide, someone who could help him manage his fears, teach him confidence, and create a sense of safety and stability. Mia listened carefully, understanding the gravity of the opportunity. She realized that accepting this job wouldn't just help her financially. It would allow her to fully use her skills and make a meaningful difference in Noah's life. As the day went on, Daniel observed Mia interact with Noah in a new way. She guided him gently through tasks, encouraged him when he tried something difficult, celebrated his successes with warmth and patience. Daniel felt a mix of pride and amazement. Mia wasn't just helping Noah, she was teaching him life skills, confidence, and trust. And in turn, she was teaching Daniel how to be a more attentive, understanding father. By the time they left the cafe that afternoon, everything had changed. Mia's life was no longer limited to long hours at the cafe, struggling under the weight of responsibility. She had an opportunity to grow, to use her talent, and to receive the respect she deserved. Daniel had gained a partner in helping his son, someone he could trust completely, someone whose presence brought a sense of calm and hope. And for Noah, life had suddenly become brighter, safer, and more joyful. As they walked out, Daniel reflected on the day. What had started as a simple act of kindness, Mia hiding under the table to comfort, his son had transformed into something far more significant. It wasn't just a job offer. It was a turning point, a moment where trust, respect, and compassion intersected to change all their lives. Daniel felt grateful, protective, and hopeful. Mia had proven herself extraordinary, and now, with the support and recognition she deserved, There was no limit to what she could achieve for Noah, for himself, and even for her own life. This was the day everything shifted. What had begun as a quiet moment in a small cafe became a pivotal moment in all their lives. Mia's courage, skill, and kindness were finally recognized. Daniel's understanding and appreciation of fatherhood deepened, and Noah's world grew safer and happier. It was a moment none of them would ever forget, a moment that would shape the future in ways they could only begin to imagine. After that life-changing day in the cafe, everything between Daniel, Noah, and Mia began to shift. The offer Daniel had made was more than just a job. It was a chance for Mia to truly use her skills, to be recognized for her patience, empathy, and intelligence. For Noah, it was more than a safe space. It was the beginning of a world where he could feel understood, accepted, and confident. Daniel watched closely as Mia slowly became an essential part of their daily lives. The first morning, Mia officially started working with Noah. She arrived early, prepared with small toys, books, and gentle games designed to engage him without overwhelming him. Daniel observed quietly from a distance, feeling a mixture of relief and wonder. Noah, who had often been anxious in public spaces, responded instantly to her presence. He smiled, reached for her hand, and allowed her to guide him through breakfast calmly. Daniel couldn't believe how quickly his son began to feel secure. It was a subtle difference at first, just a calm smile or relaxed posture. But to Daniel, it was monumental. Mia's approach was methodical, yet gentle. She didn't force Noah to do anything he didn't want to do. Instead, she guided him through small challenges, praised his efforts, and celebrated every small success. Daniel noticed how Noah began opening up, speaking more freely, laughing more often, and even initiating interactions with other children at the cafe. Mia's presence was transformative. She had created an environment of trust where Noah could explore his world without fear. And Daniel realized that this was something he himself had struggled to provide. Outside the cafe, Mia continued to work closely with Noah. She would help him with little routines that had once caused him stress, such as getting dressed in the morning or handling noisy environments. She taught him simple strategies to manage his anxiety, always patient, never rushing him, never judging him. Daniel watched, sometimes in awe, as his son's confidence grew. He understood now that Mia wasn't just comforting Noah, was teaching him independence, resilience, and trust. For the first time, Daniel saw his son's potential in a way he hadn't before. As the days went on, a new rhythm formed in their household. Mia became more than a support for Noah. She became part of the family. Daniel found himself seeking her advice on how to handle certain situations, and he realized that her insight was invaluable. She had a natural understanding of children's emotions, something Daniel had spent years trying to learn but never quite mastered. Her patience and empathy were contagious. And Daniel began incorporating her methods into his own interactions with Noah. Meanwhile, Mia herself was adjusting to her new life. The financial stability Daniel offered allowed her to stop worrying constantly about how to make ends meet. She no longer had to juggle multiple jobs or sacrifice sleep to care for her family. She could focus on using her skills fully, giving Noah the attention and care he needed. And slowly, she began to feel a sense of confidence in herself that she had never experienced before. For the first time, someone had recognized her true worth, not just as a hard worker, but as a person with a remarkable gift for helping others. Daniel also noticed changes in himself. He had always been confident in business, decisive and commanding, but when it came to parenting, he often felt uncertain. Watching Mia work with Noah taught him patience, humility, and the importance of listening. He learned to step back, let Mia guide certain moments, and observe the growth in his son. He began to understand that being a father wasn't about control or authority. It was about providing love, support, and guidance, and sometimes allowing someone else's expertise to enhance that. The bond between Noah and Mia grew incredibly strong. Noah trusted her completely. He would run to her when he felt anxious, and she would respond with warmth and understanding, never scolding, never showing frustration. Over time, he began to anticipate her presence positively, associating her with safety and comfort. Daniel watched as his son's laughter returned, as his curiosity blossomed. And as he began to take small steps in exploring the world with confidence, Mia's influence was transforming him in ways Daniel hadn't thought possible. As the weeks passed, Daniel and Mia developed a quiet friendship as well. Daniel admired her strength, resilience, and heart. He admired the way she cared for others without asking for recognition or reward. Mia admired Daniel's willingness to recognize her abilities and give her the opportunity to make a difference in Noah's life. There was a mutual respect that grew between them, built on trust, understanding, and shared experiences. It wasn't instant love, it was something deeper. The kind of bond formed when people truly see each other for who they are. One afternoon, after a busy morning at the cafe, Daniel watched Mia and Noah playing outside. Noah had built a small tower with blocks, and Mia knelt beside him, encouraging him gently. He smiled proudly at his creation, and Mia clapped softly, praising him. Daniel's heart swelled. He realized that this simple act, Mia showing patience, Noah feeling confident, was changing everything. Not just his son's life, but his own understanding of family, love, transformation. The transformation wasn't just emotional light, it was practical too. Noah's ability to manage stressful situations improved dramatically. He could handle social interactions, busy environments, and minor setbacks with Mia's guidance. Daniel noticed that he was more willing to try new things, speak up for himself, and engage with the world around him. For Daniel, this was the greatest reward he could have hoped for a son growing into a confident, happy, and resilient little boy. Mia, meanwhile, began to see her own potential in a new light. With financial stability and the freedom to focus on her skills, she started planning for the future. She thought about further training, education, and ways to help more children who needed guidance. Daniel supported her every step of the way, recognizing that her talents deserved to reach beyond their little household. He had opened a door, but it was Mia's dedication and heart that allowed it to remain open. Over time, something deeper began to grow between Daniel and Mia. It wasn't forced or rushed. It was built slowly, on respect, admiration, and shared experiences. They saw each other's strengths and vulnerabilities, their hopes and fears. Daniel admired her patience, kindness, and resilience. Mia admired Daniel's willingness to step back, to listen, and to recognize the value of her gifts. Slowly, mutual trust turned into something warm and personal, a connection that went beyond business or convenience. In the months that followed, the household settled into a new rhythm. Noah was thriving, Mia was confident and appreciated, and Daniel had found a new understanding of fatherhood, empathy, and human connection. What had started as a simple act, Mia hiding under a table with Noah to calm him, had transformed all their lives. It wasn't just a moment of kindness. It had been the first spark of life-changing relationships, growth, and understanding. Daniel often reflected on that morning in the cafe, realizing how small acts of courage and kindness could ripple out, changing the course of lives. Mia's choice to act with care and compassion, Noah's trust and bravery, and Daniel's decision to step in and support her, all of these moments combined to create a family dynamic built on love, respect, and trust. It was a lesson Daniel would carry for the rest of his life. Sometimes, the people who touch our lives the most are those we least expect, and sometimes, one small act can change everything. By the end of that first year, the trio had formed an unbreakable bond. Noah had grown more confident and happy than ever before. Mia had achieved the recognition and stability she deserved. And Daniel had learned to appreciate the value of patience, empathy, and true partnership. Their lives, intertwined through a single moment in a small cafe, were richer, fuller, and brighter. What had begun with a frightened child and a kind-hearted waitress had turned into a story of trust, growth, and life-changing connection that none of them would ever forget.